Today we're going to talk about the energy sector of our nation's economy that deals with commercial buildings. Those are offices, retail stores, restaurants, schools, universities, the places where we work, the places where we shop, shopping malls, things like that. And inside these buildings, the typical major areas of energy use are heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, environmental control so that we're comfortable where we work and buy our things, and lighting so we can see what we're doing, plug loads, and appliances. So when you look at the commercial energy sector of the United States, it consumes about 36% of all electricity production and about 18.5% of all primary energy use in this country. Now, where is that used? About 3/4 of all that electricity used in commercial buildings is used just in 3 places: heating, ventilation, air conditioning, lighting, and computers and electronic devices. So what we're going to see in the next part of this module are some typical buildings, some typical retail shops, restaurants, and places where we work and entertain. And we'll see how energy is used there and how we can save energy in these places. Here we are on the outside of Huff Hall, one of our newer buildings on the campus of the University of Florida. And we're in the commercial energy sector of the United States of America, and that includes offices, restaurants, grocery stores, retail businesses. And this is a good example of an office space. And we're going to go inside in a minute and see what kind of new things are in this building that make it operate energy efficiently and smoothly. Here's one of the common rooms in our new building, and one of the things they do in these type of buildings is use daylighting, and that is sensors in the ceiling that detect if there's enough light to operate this room without turning the lights on, and it automatically turns lights on and off depending on how much light is outside coming in. So you and I don't have to remember to flick the switch all the time because we always forget. The building does it automatically. And here we are in another common area in the same building, and we have an entire glass wall here that provides daylighting for this entire common area. One of the other things I'd like to point out are the lights in this hallway down here. These are new energy efficient lights in the ceiling, and they save a lot of money over time over the typical lights in our older buildings here on campus. Okay, we've looked on other parts of the building. Let's take a look at an office and see how energy efficient some of our new offices are. Okay, now inside a typical office, it's designed for energy efficient design. There's a lot of different things going on. First of all, there's daylighting. There's a window in the office, so when you have good lighting, you don't have to turn lights on. Second of all is the position of lights. If you look over on the desk, there's task lighting, so you can light only the surface that's needed, and the ceiling lights are off right now. The other thing you could do is look at all the computer and the peripheral electronic devices in this room. You can have them on power management to shut down and go to sleep when people are out of the office. And furthermore, there's actually sensors on the wall that will tell when you're out of the office to turn things off when you're not here. So all in all, it's a system of controls, design, and personal behavior that make this one of the very most efficient offices on campus. Another thing you have to worry about when you use daylighting is the fact that here in Florida the sun gets pretty hot. What we have here is a window with a western exposure, and if you look very carefully, you've got a screen that you can pull down that still lets enough light in to see by, but cuts out that really bright afternoon sun in the western exposures. Here we are on the inside of the building, and this plaque represents the accomplishment of the building in terms of energy and environmental design. In fact, that's what LEED stands for, Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. The gold rating is next to the top, so it's a pretty good accomplishment for our campus. Many types of businesses make up the commercial sector. What we're going to look at today is a grocery store, a local storefront retail type of business. It's a startup in the last year, and so many of the pieces of equipment inside are used, and we'll take a look and see how that affects the energy bill. One of the biggest energy users in a grocery store are display cases. These are older models because this is a startup grocery store. It's a cooperative grocery store like we talked about earlier, and the heat is rejected from this case, making the vegetables and fruits cool, but right into the building. It needs to be removed by air conditioning. Newer ones have the heat rejected outside, so it's not like a double load. And you'll find out in just a second, these are also very noisy. As you come down here, You can also see the lights in here. These lights are older lights, not very efficient. Those can be replaced, or a whole new model case can be put in here, probably using half the energy these do. Okay, one of the other things we want to talk about here is also the lighting. You know, one of the things in a restaurant and also in a grocery store is you want to see the colors that are being displayed. The greens of the green peppers, the reds of the tomatoes. Good lights for that, like also in a jewelry store, are halogen lights. They're also not very energy efficient. Some of the newer LEDs have good color rendition and are also much more energy efficient. So that's one of the recommendations we'll be making here. Okay, behind the scenes is one of the interesting parts of any store. So you start looking at how they use energy in the back rooms. What's neat about this place is you have a cooler here that's both a freezer and a cooler. The walk-in cooler part is like a foyer to the freezer. So the very coldest air is in back. So you're not dumping all the nice frozen air right into the hot part of the store. So it's energy efficient. It also was gotten when they closed one of the local hospitals. So they got a pretty good price on it too. And as you can see, it's pretty big. So inside any kind of retail establishment, you control the environment for the customer's well-being. So in here we have an air handler system that keeps the building cool in the summertime and warm in the wintertime. And this one's pretty new, right up above the door here. But as we can see on the outside units probably getting on in age, and we could replace them with new energy efficient items. Okay, so the outside air conditioning units for any kind of building, you always look around and find them and look at the condition of them. And these are well maintained, but they're getting fairly old. Newer models are much more efficient. You could probably save upwards of 40% of your air conditioning bill by replacing those. We're out back of the grocery store we just walked through, and over my shoulder you can see something that's you're going to see more of in the future. There's a photovoltaic solar array on the roof of this building. Unique to Gainesville is a feed-in tariff where the local utility will pay an investor to produce power from the sun. And that's exactly what's happening here. So even though you probably should make a building as efficient as possible first, people have gotten together and as an investment and put the solar array on the building, both in feeding energy during sunlight hours to the building, saving energy that way, and a rate of return for the investor. So it's a real good idea here in a local community and right here at our own co-op. Here we are at the Jones B-Side Restaurant. It's a local restaurant. It started here at this location a few months back, but they've been a local fixture in this town for many years. One of the things they like to do is buy local. That's another way to save energy. We talked about in our agricultural segment that if the food doesn't have to travel as far, it's much more efficient. So while we're here, let's take a look on the outside of the building to see what else we can find out before we walk inside. So we're here on the outside of a building. This just happens to be a restaurant, but this could be the same thought process you do with anything, a house, a commercial building, a university, it doesn't matter. But what do we see right here? You see a little bit of an overhang on the building, which keeps the sun out of the windows, cuts down on your air conditioning use in the summertime. And we see a brick building, nice structural building. But as we walk around the building this way, the first thing that comes to mind over here is this funny thing, piece of equipment stuck on the wall. That's a gas meter. Now, as an energy auditor, somebody that comes through and helps people save energy, that's my first clue that they use natural gas in this building, and I need to keep an eye on things that use that, so maybe we can save some energy and give some recommendations. All right, let's keep walking, because it's always like a mystery hunt when you're looking at these buildings for the first time. Well, there you have it. There's our electric meter right here. It's one of the new digital meters. It doesn't have the little rotating wheels, so you know that they've done some upgrading here. So you have a digital electric meter, and the local utility uses that to figure out how much energy's been used. And let's keep walking around the building. Okay, on this side of the building, you can see something that's really nice, especially in our climate. You have an overhang. Now, this overhang shades these windows. That happens to be looking in the easterly direction, so your morning sun doesn't come into the building to heat the building up. So you can save a lot of energy by planning your sun angles, your overhangs, and in this case, a nice awning for outdoor eating. So that's very good. You can see from this angle, the air conditioning units are on top of the building. Now that gets them out of the way for vandalism. It doesn't take up valuable real estate in a parking lot or in the building, but the problem is that might be one of the hottest parts of the building in the summer, so it makes them kind of inefficient. So one of the things you look at is, can we make these units more efficient? Can we move them at a later date? But anytime you want to upgrade and buy new equipment, you want to plan ahead for that. It might take you a couple years of planning, but it's a good way to save money is to make these decisions ahead of time. The last thing you want to do is decide what air conditioning unit you want to buy at August 14th in the afternoon when it's 100 degrees out. Well, now we walked outside the building and looked to see everything that was outside, the air conditioning, meters, things like that. Let's go inside, but before we do, take a look at these windows. If you take a careful look, you can find out that they are double pane windows. They're energy efficient, they're good for this climate, and that's the kind of thing you need. Okay, well, we've done a quick walkthrough outside. Let's take a look inside the restaurant. And obviously, right off the bat, you see that they've got good daylighting here, and that saves energy right from the beginning because you use the natural daylighting from the sun, and you don't have to use much lighting in here. You can see they have some ceiling lights here. We'll look at those as a replacement for energy efficiency because I believe they're incandescent and halogen, and your LED and your CFLs are much more efficient than that. But the other thing with a dining room is the air conditioning, and typically, as we'll see, you almost always have one system for both the kitchen and the dining room, and sometimes that can lead to trouble. Let's go in the kitchen now. This is really the background of any good restaurant, and what we have is a lot of energy use right here. You can see the lights up here. These are older T12 lights, and newer versions of these lights can save about half the energy being used for these lights right now. On this side right over here, what we have is the heart of a kitchen, is the stove, oven, a lot of energy using devices here. They have natural gas at this restaurant here. That's what most good chefs prefer to cook on, and that uses a lot of energy. But here at the end of the kitchen, we have is their freezer. Now, freezer is the coldest thing in a restaurant, and here we have the ovens and stoves, the hottest things in a restaurant. So one of the things we might recommend here with a lot of room back here is moving that freezer and back away from this hot area of the kitchen. Let's come around the corner here. Gets kind of tight back here, but it's a good working environment. You got drink boxes here that keep things cool. Come around the corner. On this side over here, we have another stove. Over here, a walk-in cooler. Now this is built right into the building, so that's not going to move. Okay, but what we find out is there's a lot of new equipment in the restaurant, grocery store environment that uses a lot less energy. So again, a long-term plan might be to upgrade this material or these devices to something that are more energy efficient. Yeah, thanks. This is startup right before the restaurant starts, so as you can imagine, it's pretty busy in here. Okay, if we want to come back here, what we have here is like any place, the dishwashing station where you clean all the dishes. You need hot water for that, to clean the dishes. We come back over here. Yeah, ice machine, all these use energy also. But back in the corner we have a hot water heater. That's an electric water heater, and what we have at this site is natural gas and electricity, so one of the recommendations right here is use natural gas for your water heating. It's both cheaper and more energy efficient. Okay, if you look back up here, there's an attic hatchway into the attic, and we'll be looking at that a little bit later, see what the insulation is in this building. That might be a way where we can save energy also. Now, if we want to go back here, take a look right here on the wall. That's our thermostat. Now, one thing common to a lot of restaurants is they have one air conditioning system for the entire building. And so you have patrons out there that are eating dinner, eating lunch, eating breakfast, and then you have workers back here in a hot kitchen moving, working, a lot of physical activity. So with one air conditioning and one control, sometimes there's a fight between a too cold dining area and a too hot kitchen area. So one of the areas you might have is a zone control on an updated air conditioning system that could save both energy and make it more comfortable in here also. All right, one of the things you always want to do at places like this is check out the attic. What we have here is a typical commercial building with a roof deck and a drop ceiling below it. Insulation's at the roof deck, and the building is a little older, so I'd suspect that there's a real lack of insulation. The other problem is the actual attic hatchway itself, with a hole there, basically lets the air travel freely from kitchen to hot attic and kind of throws away some of your air conditioning. So we'll be fixing that too in the future. So today we've looked at a local retail grocery store, a restaurant, and some typical office spaces. We saw some very old and out-of-date technology. We also saw some of the very newest technology. So you can see where our vendors and our industry is taking us in terms of energy savings. We've got a lot to offer and some areas we need to move into. So the current lighting technology is a lot more efficient. The pictures up here represent some lights that you can get on the market right now, but I guarantee you by the time this comes out, the lighting industry will move even farther and faster. Newer display cases for our restaurants and our grocery stores are very much more energy efficient than the ones that have typically been used in the past. Also, the new appliances we can put into places will save a lot more energy. We've looked at the fact that the energy production for commercial spaces in our nation's economy use about 36% of all the electricity and about 18.5% of all primary energy. But if you break that down even further, the commercial building spaces in this country use 38% of all their energy in lighting alone. Just lighting uses 38% of the electrical energy in the commercial building spaces. And that's used up in lamps and powering the ballasts that fire those lamps. And also it matters what kind of fixtures you have and what kind of controls you have. Daylighting, timers, photocells, or just a manual switch. But all in all, a 4-to-1 improvement in lighting is possible in terms of controls and new technologies. If you added all those numbers up, that would result in an overall savings to our nation's electric production of 10%. 10%. You think, well, that's just a small fragment, but 10% of our nation's electricity production is more than we get from all of our hydroelectric sources. It's more than we get from other renewable energy sources. So doing these upgrades and making our nation's buildings, commercial buildings, more energy efficient in lighting would save a significant amount of the nation's energy.